I am Diane Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. Future of Work, Purpose-Driven Careers, Smarter Networks, Rethinking Career Growth, Beyond Titles and Job Descriptions. Of course, no other than Miss Carlee Wolfe.
How's it going? Thanks for having me. Oh, the warm intro.
Yes, busy, Miss Carlee. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm Carlee. I currently live in Baltimore, Maryland. Not always a medium-term Baltimore resident. Originally from the Chicago area and lived around, which has been a fun journey. And in terms of career, I currently work at Hyatt hotels and lead our leadership development and organizational effectiveness group. And I also, I'll call it like my passion work, coach volleyball and work with adaptive sports, particularly with USA Volleyball and their sitting volleyball team, and an organization I'm very passionate about here in Baltimore, the Kennedy Krieger Institute. So that's a little bit about me.
Miss Carlee Wolfe, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world.
Love it.
Okay, so how do you define career growth in a way that moves beyond the traditional ladder of promotions and title changes?
Yeah, I mean, I think traditional ladders and titles, over the past, 10 plus years have always been under question, right? Is that the main thing that somebody should be looking at from their career opportunities? And I think that couldn't be any more true than now, which is largely driven because the world is changing quite rapidly around us. Name something like AI and how that's influencing the world, but also then as a result, world of work. So I think the jobs of today are going to look much different than the jobs of tomorrow. So literally from that perspective, we can throw out the titles. But I always go back to thinking about purpose. Like, what is your purpose in life, and how does that translate to work? To be kind of your North Star, and leading that to think about careers and career growth from that point of view, right? If I want to, I started my career knowing it was very broad, but I wanted to make an impact on people's lives, like positive, and specifically at work. I knew I liked development. I didn't know what leadership development was at the time, but I spent time networking and sort of learned what that looked like, and that became a part of then my career and career aspiration. So I give that as an example because it started with that purpose of helping others. And I would say, how do other folks think about that? Leading with purpose in mind and thinking about the journey that they want to go on as they continue to develop, to grow, and if they're wanting to move up or over in their career, what impact looks like at those different stages. So I think beyond titles and levels, that's career path. It's very, very open, dependent on the person and what they're seeking.
A career path indeed. And what are the most common signs that someone is chasing a title for status rather than meaningful growth?
I mean, I think it's maybe perhaps as simple as it sounds. I'm after this title, and that's the thing that I want to achieve, right? I want to be maybe director of marketing. That in itself is a title. It is a pursuit of that particular outcome. And I think this is where it might miss the mark, right? I'm not saying that a level doesn't help give us perspective on like the types of skills, influence, or impact that might be required in those types of positions. But what I'm saying is to solely look at just that title and just that position as one piece of, or the only pursuit, I think it puts blinders on. It limits what we can grow, it limits how we can connect with people, it limits the focus that I have in terms of thinking about impact. So I think it's quite as simple, to answer your question, quite as simple as just someone saying, hey, I want that title and that's all I'm going after. And my question back would be like, what else, in keeping that focus, where else can you, what would be, in opening up that focus, what else could be possible for you?
Definitely. What will be the possible thing that you achieve? So, why is the traditional corporate ladder an outdated model for professional development in today's world?
I think a big part of it is, I mean, it's twofold. One, I mentioned like the changing world of work, the idea of what sits in a construct of a job, I think is slowly changing right now, but will gain speed and rapidly change in the future. I mean, we've seen that in different kind of evolutions of work, but for example, shifting from skilled, labored worker to skilled worker, and now we're in another one of those pivots, and so that just requires different way of working. But I think in particular right now, it's about actually skills in the sense of things like project management, things like communicating, leading, influencing, and then like technical skills. Like I work in HR. Like, do I understand how to build HR strategy? Do I understand what talent management looks like? So I think it's really anchoring on skills and skills needed to execute your role and how you're moving in proficiency, right? Like maybe I'm a beginner, and I'll just use a broad example. I'm a beginner in HR. How do I become an expert in HR? There's different ways that I can learn, have experiences that continue to move me on that continuum of expertise. So I think that that's just one way the shift is happening, and ways that I think people can consider for themselves and thinking about, if they're talking about what's next for me in my career. What are you good at? What do you want to get better at? How do you want to bring that skill set to an organization to support them in their mission?
Very well said,
Thank
Miss
you.
Carlee. Beautifully articulated. Let's talk about the new metrics of success. If not title or salary, where are the key indicators someone should use to measure their own career progress?
Yeah, I think two things. One, we just got done talking about skills. So how are they progressing and how they're thinking about learning and developing and applying those skills? I think another question that people could be thinking about is like, what impact do I want to make? Or what impact is my organization asking me to make? And how do I, at the end of the day, measure those impacts to know if I'm being successful or not? So, for example, if I'm in marketing and part of my role is to build a marketing strategy that increases our leads, well, maybe I need to build communication skills. I need to build a market analysis skill to target the right folks. And through that, a measure of success would be quite literally, did I increase our lead generation? Do we have more leads today than we did before? So that could also be another way to look at success. Outside of my personal advancement and how I'm growing as an individual, what is the capability and the impact that I'm bringing to the organization?
Miss Carlee, what does impact look like in a modern career, and how is it different from just completing a task in a job description?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think tasks in a job description sort of just kind of guide us on what are the skills and experience levers that our organization is looking for us to apply when we bring value to the organization. So how do we flip that on its head? I think it's looking at the end impact. So that could be your customer, that could be your product, your solution, perhaps it's how you consult. And so I think it's really just taking a look at, when I think about my purpose at work and what the organization has hired me to do and bringing value, I think it's then pulling that back and saying like, well, why does that matter? Why is that going to make a difference? How can we measure that? That's to me the peeling back of the layers of what success, or how you can measure success in kind of the new environment, or you asked off the job description. And I think it's important for people to look at that. We all go to work and want to have an impact and want to know the value that we're making. And so the harder that we can look at that for ourselves, I think the more rewarding work can be, especially in the changing world as things move around us. Having that understanding of impact starts to become a beacon of clarity, which is really, really powerful.
Let's talk about the skill development and mastery, Miss Carlee. How does the concept of mastery or becoming true expert in a niche are lead to more freedom and opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, I mean, first of all, I think there's freedom and confidence. I think there's freedom in understanding self and what someone can bring um, to the world. So I think just out of the gate, there's sort of that intuitive, I know myself. What other value comes from that expertise or mastery also comes down to, I think, efficiency and effectiveness, right? If I'm really skilled at something, I'm going to move much quicker, have deeper impact, have broader impact than someone that's just sort of emerging in the space. I think mastery also allows us to navigate in a more connected way, right? It's not just sort of like a linear approach to making a solve or to contributing. It's how am I now connecting into other spaces? So, for example, I could be really great at I'll use like employee engagement, building employee engagement strategy. But if I'm only in my early days of building that skill, right, it's about probably spending time like, why is this important? What are the parts and pieces? How do I help socialize? But if I have that experience, the education to move us along to understand what's going to be most important for the organization at this time, not only can I move that strategy along faster, but now I can meet with my stakeholders and start to talk differently about the value of that engagement strategy and why it has impact on their business and why they should care and how it folds into how they think about impact. It starts to allow me to ask questions as I go to network to learn about what's happening in market so I can make my organization a better place to work. It allows me to then start to ask questions within our broader HR strategy. Does this help become a key lever for us to measure success? How can my senior leaders leverage this across the business to drive their outcomes? So I'm going down that HR rabbit hole mainly to give an example to say I think mastery gives us the confidence, it gives us the space to maneuver, and I think it greatly increases our impact and where we can go with.
Miss Carlee, in the age of AI, what types of human centric skills are becoming the most valuable for sustainable career growth?
Yeah. Curiosity. I'm going to start with curiosity, right? Being curious
Yes.
about what's possible, curious about what else I need to learn, curious about what could be changing for me, curious about what I can be influencing change on, curious about, what's that tool? What's that thing? I just think I can't use the word curiosity enough. That's definitely something. I think I've been in a lot of conversations where empathy continues to be a really important word, right? Still having that human connection and empathizing with others to build connections. I think uh, drive or interest in innovation, right? So like creating a new, right? I think that is maybe potentially born from curiosity, but how are we thinking about what's possible? What could be reinvented or reinvented? I think those would be a couple of things that, if I think about skill sets or maybe mindsets in the new world of AI that I would encourage people to bring to bear. And I would add this. I would say also maybe being thoughtful about the space that to have confidence in a very dynamic and uncertain space. And confidence, I think, comes from like, who am I? What do I want to continue to bring to the world as self, right? I think understanding self and how self relates in the world is also very human, and leveraging that to have confidence in a changing time.
Miss Carlee, as a purpose driven careers, smarter networks, what are your short term and long term goals?
I think for goals and thinking about network, I think maybe I'm going to expand on the curiosity of like who are people that we want to have on our networks that are supportive of our goals. We started this conversation with careers. I think having a career goal and sharing that with others in your known network, meaning people that you know, and unknown network, meaning people that you have possibility to meet, is huge. I think networking to learn, to open perspective in the world is important, right? It fuels our confidence in learning, in knowing. I think it also gives perspective, which is, where do I fit in this evolving space, right? If I'm able to connect and network with others, I can only now see where I can understand more diverse experiences and points of view. I think there's also networking with purpose, which is, hey, maybe I'm seeking to learn, maybe I'm seeking to gain. When I say gain, I mean like knowledge, gain impact in the work that I'm doing. But I think there's in purposeful networking, and this can be done a lot with work, which is like, hey, I'm trying to drive an outcome in my position. What are the tools and resources and folks around me that might be able to support me in that? I think the last thing in networking is, being able to give back to network as well. I think it's as simple as like taking on some of those calls where someone reaches out and says, hey, would you be interested in sharing your career story with me? Finding the yes in that every once in a while, right? Networks are ecosystems. We're all looking to connect in one way or the other. And just as much as you might need someone, they might need you. And I think that that's really powerful when you think about networks and networking.
Miss Carlee, good luck to your goals and looking forward for more success. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there want to be like you?
I think be open, be curious, and be passionate, and use those things to fuel you as you move forward. Right? We get one shot at this life, and if you lead with things that are important to you and are connecting and staying open in that journey, I think there's only reward and joy and fulfillment that comes from that. So keep being you and keep pursuing.
Yes, indeed. And thank you for that advice, Miss Carlee. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Yes. I'm gonna go with Into the Magic Shop by James Doty. I love it. It's at the core. It's a book about mindfulness. But I'm also a person of people's stories and storytelling. And this is a book about a neurosurgeon and their quest to understand self better and navigate in the world. And so I just not only thoroughly enjoyed the story of James and his life, but the lessons that come from mindfulness and what we can also take from mindfulness in our journey in our lives. And the other thing, just personal note about that book, is I enjoyed it so much. I gave it to a friend to read and she loved it. And we started now this new tradition where we like pass on the book to friends. So I wrote a little note in the cover. I gave it to her. She wrote a note in the cover and she gave it on to someone. So maybe somewhere in the world, someone has that book, Into the Magic Shop. And if it starts with my signature, Carlee, now you know where it came from. But just a fun tradition that I'll throw out to others to consider in their reading journeys, because there's nothing more powerful than a story, and then, of course, a shared story.
Thank you for that recommended book, Miss Carlee. And what is a simple exercise someone can do this week to start redefining what growth means for them personally?
Good question. I think close their eyes, imagine themselves a year from now. They are thriving in their role. They enjoy the people that they're with. They enjoy the work that they're doing. What is it that they're doing? What is it that the people around them are doing? What does that room feel, sound, and feel like? And if you can take that image for the future and bring yourself back to today and say, what's one step forward I want to take in working towards that vision? That's what I'll leave them with. It starts with one step, and it starts with one step to that vision that they have for themselves, and keep taking one step at a time.
Yes, baby steps, people.
Yes.
How does career security look like when it's no longer tied to climbing a single corporate ladder?
I think what is job security? I think it comes down to the individual and what they value in their job and what they're getting out of it. I mean, from a very practical standpoint, a job for many of us is livelihood, right? We get paid to do something to continue to be able to move around the world. But I think beyond that, it's about what are we doing? Do we feel like we're contributing? Do we feel like we're in a place where we're seen and supported? And do we feel like we're growing and developing? So I think if we can fill those three buckets, which by the way, we've been talking a lot about today, I think that starts to build maybe the security of now and in the future. Because as we've talked about, job, role, career construct is much different. So it's really about what keeps you centered, and what's important to you, and making sure that stays in the center.
And how can individuals take ownership of their growth in environments where companies offer less structured career planning?
Yeah, I think we've touched on a couple of ways of thinking about what is your role and what are you contributing to the organization. So how can people take control of that growth and development? I think it's spending time to say, in my organization, what do I see, or what do I hear, or what can I learn to know from others, like my boss, of the skills and contributions that are important in my role. By the way, I can also look externally and look at job postings, research to see what skills and information is out there to help fuel where I'm at today. And I think and by the way, there are also tools out there, lots of AI tools on skills that are available, apps, browsers. I don't have a particular recommendation because I always like to make sure people read, the privacy information that they need for themselves. But basically between an AI tool, self reflection, or gathering insights and information from your organization, really getting an understanding of what skills are most important for you today in your role. And then what are the most important ones for you? And I'll say maybe in the next 3, 6, 9, 12, and 18 months. And then how do you think about making incremental improvements, investments in those skill sets to get better and continue to grow? And those investments can look things like, I'm seeking an experience. I'm looking to learn. We just talked about books. I'm reading something. I'm networking with someone. All of those things can contribute to our skill development and ultimate advancement. And one thing I'll share with these AI tools, a lot of them are embedded in organizations today. So for folks, maybe they can kind of consider leveraging their organizational tools to do these types of assessments. But also if they're looking externally, what they tend to look like is literally a self-assessment. What kind of industry are you in? What kind of job do you have? Here are common skill sets that what level are you? And by level, that might be years of experience, or earlier we talked about mastery. Maybe it's about perceived mastery, but getting that self-assessment of current state to be able to move beyond where you're at today and grow.
Miss Carlee, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in 5th season, abstract poetry in 2nd season, and my book 101 review in 5th season too. Comedy 101 in 2nd season, and my food 101 in 5th season as well. Geography 101 in 4th season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love letters in its 3rd season, and Movie 101 review and Music 101 in 4th season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its 1st season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcasts. So, Miss Carlee, if you could leave our audience and viewers with one mantra for rethinking their career path, what would it be?
Ooh, we say this a lot on our team at work, so I'm going to use it here, which is GSD, or get shit done, or get stuff done, depending on where you're at. And really, I think that's just about your pursuit. What do you want to be doing in your career and in life? What are the steps that you want to take to get there? And I say go after it. So GSD. And also, by the way, I want to check out your Food 101 podcast.
Yes, will you be my guest? Will you be my guest on Food 101? And let's talk about your favorite food.
Ooh, love that.
Yes, I'm gonna shout out to you there, Miss Carlee, as well as my abstract essay. And Miss Carlee, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy or any projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, if people want to connect, LinkedIn, happy to share. We'll share that link. So happy to connect with folks. But in terms of advocacy, I mentioned earlier Kennedy Krieger Institute here in Baltimore, doing amazing things. And so we recommend folks to check that out. And if they need a new sport to follow, sitting volleyball. That's the new one coming up. LA Paralympics in 2028.
Yes.
That.
Definitely. Yes, people, let's support Miss Carlee Wolfe because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering advocacy to come. So, Miss Carlee, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon.